Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for a few of you that are on Zoom. Thank you for all of those on Instagram and Facebook Live. We'll be broadcasting this. We'll be recording this for many of our realtor partners, for our buyers. This is the 2025 forecast, and I wanted to let you know why I'm doing it so late in the year is because some of these things just were formed with an obvious administration change. So that can affect housing. I believe it will impact housing, and we needed to see what some of the executive orders were. Obviously, that's ongoing. President Trump just took office 9 days ago. But as you'll see in this presentation, most of it will be determined on good old numbers, good old economics. I think people put too much weight into the economy of who the president is, and stock markets do well for both Democrats and Republicans. Stock markets do poorly for both Democrats and Republicans. So take your political hat off and put your data, old school economics, and current data, real time data, not flawed old data, and look at this from a perspective of economics, not of who is in the Oval Office. So, thank you for all of you tuning in. Feel free on both Facebook and Instagram. We'll try and monitor that, and I will let you ask some questions. Those on Zoom, feel free to ask some questions, and I'm going to get started. So this is the 2025 market outlook. Our screen looking okay, Anna Marie? See my slide deck okay?
Yes.
Yep, we all good? All right.
Yep.
So this is 2025 forecast. That's obviously Jerome Powell. The Federal Reserve has a big impact on not just mortgage rates, but interest rates. But I'm here to tell you they are not the end all be all. What bond traders trade bonds at, how the stock market's doing, how treasury bonds are doing, all go into what a mortgage rate is. And this just isn't a mortgage rate prediction. This is an overall real estate prediction for our country. So I work three main markets. I work Chicago, Illinois, where I built my business for over 20 years and where most of my business is still at. I now live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and work that market. And I also work the Charleston, South Carolina, where I own property at. So this is encompassing of the whole country. So obviously real estate is local, and not all of these things are going to apply to your market, but generally the US real estate market acts pretty similar, not always, but pretty similar in most markets. So what does the Federal Reserve Board think is going to happen with their interest rate policy? The current future funds rate is at 4.375, right? Now there is also the federal prime rate, right? And that is their interest rate policy. I'll show you towards the end how this all works together. But as of right now, the 4.375 is where we sit for the federal funds rate. Three members, these dots represent three what are called plot maps or dot plots. And this is what the Fed says. This is what the Fed members, there's 19 of them. This is what we think is going to happen this year. So there were three that said, we think we will just cut 0.25%, right? There were 10 members that said, hey, we believe we'll cut 0.5%. There were three that said 3.625, right? So that's 5/8%. And then there was one that said a full percent. Now this was put together by MBS Highway. Barry Habib, you've seen him on CNBC Squawk Box. If you go to my Facebook, I just read a letter and a really rallying cry to the Federal Reserve that is in President Trump's hands. That's how well respected he is the president went to him to see what we could do about making housing more affordable. So obviously 9 days, I think it was 6 days into his inauguration, he's calling on Barry to say, what do we do about this? Why is the data flawed? So that's a whole nother topic. But if you want to educate yourself on the old school, outdated metrics and reports that the Fed use for their policies, I just did a video about it. So go to my Facebook feed. So MBS Highways, who put this together, they believe in their prediction, and their predictions are typically my predictions because they're way smarter than I am. And Barry taught me all of this. I've been working with him for over 20 years on several different levels and have had the pleasure of getting to speak next to him. They are saying that interest rates will get cut 1%. So they're going against 18 other Fed members that they believe will be inaccurate. And then there's one all the way down to 3.125. So that'd be over 1% cut. Now, why do they feel this? Okay, why do these Fed members think it's 10? And why does someone like Barry Habib think it's full percent? We believe it's because they believe the job market is stronger than it actually is. So right now in that same survey, the Federal Reserve members, Federal Reserve Board members, 14 of them thought inflation, or excuse me, unemployment would be 4.2 to 4.3% this year. 5 members thought it would increase a little bit. Okay, so they are thinking that it will go up a little bit. Current unemployment, if you see right here, is at 4.2%. And this will be a lot of data, and we'll geek out on the data a little bit. Yes, that data gets a little boring, but I'm going to tie this all in together of why this is so important for you to know for your listings, to know for your buyers, mortgage lenders watching, why this is so important to push your clients to get into the property now, knowing that we'll be refinancing at this point or at some point this year. And a lot of people have beat me up or sent DMs and said, hey, you told us to marry the home and date the rate and divorce the rent, and we are dating this interest rate a long time. Well, a lot of that is because clients don't take advantage and think that they can predict interest rates better than someone doing it 20 years. So in October of this year, there were 5% interest rates available. We locked in many clients that were on a 30-year at 8%, 7.75, and we locked them in at a 5.75 20-year fixed. Their payments went down, their mortgage went down 10 years. That lasted 2 days this year. 2 days. That rate was available for 2 days. So people think that these things are going to last forever, or hey, it's going lower, so it's going to continue to go lower. No market is linear. So listen to the professionals, those that listen, my past clients that listen, about half of them listen, right? And they're in 5-something%, low 6% interest rates. The ones that didn't listen are still in their 7.5, 7.6 to 5, and they're kicking themselves that they didn't proceed, right? So these things move fast. The markets move fast. You have to strike when those opportunities are available. They sometimes do not last that long. Cool. So what are we aiming for, right? If we got 4.4 to 4.5% unemployment, that means 14 Fed members would, and if you look back here, that means 14 of these members would be off in their estimates, which would determine what they vote their interest rate policy to be, right? So it does not take that much, as you can see, for them to be wrong and change. And what I will say, I take a lot of shots at the Fed, and I disagree how they look at data, and I hate how they use a government agency when there's real-time third-party data that is much more accurate and much more up to date than their old school antiquated models that they use, right? So it's not that. What I will say about them though is they do pivot when they're wrong, and they change very quickly, and that I appreciate about them. So for it to go to 4.6, which isn't that far off, and you'll see at the end, this is our prediction, that would mean all 19 members are wrong, meaning they're underestimating that unemployment will get higher. So yes, we hate for job losses, but for inflation to come down, it has to happen, right? The thing about inflation, and remember, inflation is too many dollars chasing too few of goods. Demand and supply. Everything you'll see today, it just comes down to simple supply and demand. I'm not going to throw politics into it. I'm not going to throw fear into it. I'm not going to throw emotions. I'm going to look at it with data, right? Past history usually will tell us our future, and you'll see some of these slides do that. Cool. So if unemployment goes up to 4.6%, which we believe will happen, all 19 members will be wrong, and they'll be forced to change their interest rate policy. So that's what we believe will happen. So why will this happen? It's become, not just going to say it and predict it, I'm going to show you why we came up with this, and why Barry Habib came up with this. So forecasted inflation, right? What is inflation going to do? Mortgage rates will follow inflation. I'll say that again. Mortgage rates will follow inflation. That's it. That's what we have to know. Inflation down, mortgage rates down. Now, there's so much misinformation out there about inflation. I want to simplify it a bit for you today. Okay. 2.8% year over year as of this past November. November's reports come out in early January. So we haven't seen December as of yet. That will come out. But core PCE, that means personal consumption expenditure, right? It's significantly overstated, and I'll show you why. It's 2.8% year over year. Now, the Fed has a target of 2%. That's their magic number where they throw a parade. They say, okay, we're going to be accommodative now. We've got it down to where we want it to, right? That's 2%. That's their target. They've said this over and over and over and over again. Shelter is 18% of this index. That is up. They measure this by rent, which is flawed. If you go to my video on Facebook, I shot about an hour ago, the letter to President Trump, as well as why this is inaccurate. That's all on my Facebook feed, Chad Lubin. So just go search me if you're not friends with me, and you'll see the video of the letter to President Trump, as well as why their antiquated old school data is incorrect. And this will catch up. The truth always comes out, right? It just takes too long. So shelter is 4.8% year over year. Now, I believe in the realtors, the lenders, the people that do this all day, every day, and the data that comes from that, the actual real-time data on sales, on leases, on interest rates, not a forecast, not a model, but actual real-time data, which is there right now. And it's crazy that they don't use it. But CoreLogic is a great service, and they are at 1.7%, right? So I trust that, not their antiquated data models. And you'll see that letter to President Trump is just really by the end saying, hey, get rid of the old school data and forecast and go with the accurate real-time data. That's all we need to do to prove that inflation isn't as bad as we think it is. So CoreLogic is saying 1.7. That's a 3.1 overestimate that the Fed's working with right now. Cool. And I know some of this gets a little complex. I do have a finance degree. I try and simplify this as easy as much as possible. But I will tell you, if you can speak and show these slides to your sellers, to your buyers, this gives you a leg up over your competition. I will, some of those higher end buyers, pull these slides up, talk them through it, let them know I'm making recommendations, and it just automatically makes you an expert. So check it out. PCE is 4.8, CoreLogic's 1.7, that's a 3.1. So based on the weighting, remember this is 18% of this index, the result is an overestimate of 0.5%, right? So Not PCE is not at 2.8% like we showed in November. It's actually 2.3%. If we can get the Fed, and when President Trump said, I think they're going to listen to me in his executive order, this is what I can't guarantee that, but knowing Barry and his influence, I believe he's going to go to Jerome Powell and the Fed and say, hey, I'm not trying to, he sometimes has this aura of pounding his chest, and I just think he could communicate better. But I believe he's going to them to say, hey, just get rid of the old school Bureau of Labor and Statistics way of doing it and just use this real-time data, and you can see we're already there. And I'll show you how this got us in trouble previously. So core PCE should actually be at 2.3%, right? Now, here's how this works if they stay with the old school model, right? And you can see shelter is coming down. So if any of you guys watching work with renters, you'll know that there's a lag, right? It takes a full year before another lease is written. So in order to see if rents are coming down, we pay for a year. Nothing happens. It stays the same. Hopefully they pay, right? But the lease is the lease. So it takes a whole year before a new one's written. And you can see that the trend is significantly down. So what happens, right? Why is it a year? It is a year. What happens is, hey, the new one replaces the old one, right? So the new December 2024 that just came out, and why interest rates went lower, came out lower, and it replaced December of 2023. So December 2024 came in lower, and it replaces December of 2023. So this goes away. The new lower number, it was about the same. But what happened is the markets realized, hey, we have some bigger numbers that we're about to replace. So if we look back, right, you can see we're almost down to 0.2%. So barely rent going up at all, right? Barely. And this is why the model's flawed. They only look at rent. They don't look at home prices and mortgage payments, which just doesn't make sense to me, and is part of the rallying cry that they changed the data they're looking at. So if we're replacing January 2024, which comes out in February, so about a month away, you can see this was a really big number in January. So if we get 0.2, that pulls that number that they're looking at to be more accommodative on interest rate down quickly. So you can see why this takes so long and why there needs to be a new way, because there's data like CoreLogic out there that's real time, and they don't need to work off this year-long lag, right? And they need to include home prices, and they need to include mortgage payments. And when all that's put together, with interest rates coming down, it's about 0.3% down over the last 2 weeks. You'll know that we should see some lower interest rates. I'll give you my prediction at the end. Here is the problem. There is inflation and there's cumulative inflation. So inflation, once again, is too many dollars chasing too few of goods, right? Why is this important? Because people don't realize that it's like gaining weight, right? If you gain 20 pounds and then you lose 5 pounds, well, and then you gain back, lose 5 pounds and then you gain 7, right? You're up 22 pounds. It doesn't matter that you lost the 5 when you gain the 7. And that's what inflation is. What inflation is home until it's negative, until there's deflation, which is really hard to accomplish, prices are not going down. It's just the rate that they're increasing. The rate that they're increasing has slowed down. So prices are still up. There's not deflation of prices coming down. And you'll see on the real estate section of this prediction why that's probably not going to happen. So labor plays the most important part, and then I promise I'll get into the fun part, which is interest rates and real estate appreciation. So unemployment is rising. That is terrible for the people going through it. That is good for interest rates and real estate. Why? Because there's too many dollars chasing too few of goods. When there's job loss, that those dollars go away. Yes, we hate it. Yes, we hate to hear it. I have family members that have went through it. I've had to lay off myself in the mortgage business before. It sucks to go through, but this is all about economics, and the economics stay. That's a good thing for interest rates. That shrinks the money supply because that wage goes away, because the company can't afford to pay it anymore, right? So you can see there's been a steady increase on this. And when you look at the last 7 months, that's quick, right? It's gone up 21% in the last 7 months. So they're starting to realize there's weakness in the jobs number, in unemployment. Now, there's an argument that after people fall off unemployment benefits, that some of them stop looking for work and then they don't count towards those numbers. So it doesn't mean they found another job. It means their unemployment benefits are gone and they're not applying for new jobs. They've given up. They're taking a break, looking for jobs, whatever it is. So it's hard to measure those people, and that also leads to inaccuracy of reporting. So why do we know jobs are going down? Well, look at from a just retail perspective, how many businesses or stores have gone away. Party City completely closed, 850 locations. And it's not just the 850. Think of when you go into Party City, if you've ever been there, how many people are working. Those 850 stores are gone. Big Lots, 580 stores closed. Family Dollar, 700. CVS, 900. Vance Auto Parts, down. Walgreens, I was shocked to see that, 1,200. Macy's, 65. American Freight, on and on and on. Foot Locker. Retail is struggling. Those are jobs, right? So that's not good. So we have unemployment up 21% the last 7 months. We have lots of retail stores not doing well, retail struggling, right? And check it out. Less job openings. That's called JOLTS. That's job openings. So job postings and openings is on the clear decline from April 2022 of 12 million down to 7.7. That's a huge decrease, right? Terrible for people looking for a job, good for inflation shrinking and slowing down, as well as money supply being taken out, right? Which can stop the inflation and get interest rates under control. So that is what the Fed looks at. Okay. I know that's super boring, but I wanted to explain it to you. And the more you know, the more deadly you can be with your conversion of clients if you can talk through these things and don't just talk. Share these slides with them. I'm happy if you put your email in the chat on Zoom, on Facebook and Instagram Live, but just put it in the comment section and we'll make sure we send this out to you. And take my stuff as I've done, what do they call it? R&D, which means rip off and duplicate. You are welcome to do that with this. I pay for a service that gives this to me. So I just added a few things that I thought a little differently than them, but basically I just R&D'd. So feel free to do the same with these slides for you and for your presentation. So what does this all mean for interest rates here in real estate? These are the parts we're all here to hear. This is the forecast, right? So the problem that's been happening is the 10-year treasury. No, I'll try not get too technical, but there are two markets that fight over investment dollars. There's actually four now, but you could say five. There's commodities like gold and silver. There's equities, which is the stock market. There's now cryptocurrency. And then there's these two, treasury bonds, US debt that they guarantee a rate of return. You will probably all have a savings bond or at least heard of it. That's what a 10-year treasury is. It's a 10-year note from our treasury, our US government, guaranteeing they will pay you X back. That's a 10-year treasury. Well, that competes with mortgage bonds. Mortgage bond is what's called a mortgage-backed security. And those two bonds are always fighting over investment dollars, right? The target is 3.6 or less. That's where we're going to see interest rates under 6%. And I'll tell you, just from the three markets, it's funny. All three markets, Chicago, Charleston, and Chicago that I work, every time interest rates hit 6.25, it's a frenzy, right? It takes about 2 weeks before people run their numbers, see the mortgage calculators online, get the news. Sometimes that's too late because they hear about it in 2 weeks and they've already gone back up. That's happened several times this year. But there's something magic. I coach about 20 top loan originators across the country, a few real estate agents as well. And we just all have kind of compile and say, yeah, that magic number 6.25. It just more qualification. People seem more comfortable with the interest rate. That just seems to be a magic number, right? So for us to get there or under, we need the 10-year treasury to be about 3.6. You can, and I told you guys to start, divorce the rent, marry the home, date the rate. And I've gotten some really mean DMs and comments about that, but they were off. Rates did hit 5% last year, higher 5%. It just only lasted about 2 weeks, right? And these were the 2 weeks. You can see them right here. Okay. So we need that to be a little more consistent this year. And here's why we believe that will happen. The 10-year treasury, we need it to be 3.6 or less. Now, here's been the problem. The spread between the 10-year treasury and the 30-year fix has been huge. Why? Because when interest rates are really high, the mortgage bond is not as valuable as when the interest rates are lower. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you think, well, the interest rates are higher, it pays a higher rate of return. But it stays on the books a lot shorter than a 2.5% interest rates. Raise a hands and just put in the comments, put me, or in the chat in Zoom, put me. I put me if you've had a client say, I'm not moving. I'd like to buy a new home, but I'm not moving because I have a 3% interest rate, 2.5% interest rate. Please put me in the comments or in the chat. So if that's you, right, those people make that mortgage valuable to an investor because they're staying in it a long time. They keep paying. Where when interest rates hit 8%, that mortgage note is worth very little because they know they're going to refinance out of it right away. And they're taking a risk that that person might default or might foreclose because they have a high payment. And if they don't, they're going to refinance quickly and the mortgage note gets paid off. So I hope I explained that well. So just think of it this way. Interest rates high, mortgage bonds are worth less. And why are they worth less? Because they're going to be refinanced quickly. So it's called a servicing release premium, or SRP. That value goes to zero basically when interest rates are that high because there's no servicing release premium. So as a mortgage lender, you get paid to service the loan and collect the monthly payments, pay the taxes, pay the insurance, make sure everything's up to date on the property. So the end investor that owns that note can just collect the check or the return on that investment. So that's how mortgages work. So when interest rates are really high, there's this spread between the 10-year and the 30-year that gets astronomically high. And check it out. It got up to 3.1% in October. So you now know why interest rates were hitting, mortgage rates, I should say, were hitting in the eights, high sevens, low eights. Crazy. Currently, that has shrunk. Good news. We've had 2 great weeks for interest rates. The spread is shrinking. It's now 2.5%. So why do we think interest rates are going to go lower in the next 6 months? Right there. That is why. We believe with unemployment, with inflation, hopefully our friend's letter that's with President Trump gets to the Fed and they see the data they're using has a big lag. We believe all these things will come together. The 10-year treasury will hit 3.6. We believe that margin that I just showed you will narrow more down to 2.25. So what do we get? 585. Okay. That's our magic number. That's when the confetti goes off. That's when you're going to be overwhelmed with buyers, right? Because the monthly payments work, there's more qualification. It's estimated that every 0.5% interest rate drop, there is up to 4 million more buyers in our country that qualify that didn't before, right? So that's when you'll see that frenzy. And I'll show you in a second that yes, listings have increased, but not enough to keep up with the demand. And I'll drive this point home. So we believe mortgage rates are going to settle by the summer and into the fall in the higher fives, lower sixes. Now, the great thing is sometimes we're doing 20 years and we're getting into the low fives. And when people hear that right now, they just jump at it, right? So what's going to happen with real estate this year? Obviously, it's been one of the best assets that we've seen over the last 10 years. It has performed tremendously. It's simple economics. It's supply and demand. And I'll prove this point to you. So this is the U.S. housing market snapshot. Right now, there's about 136 million households. 45 million are rented, 91 million are owned. Obviously, you have no equity if you're a renter, right? But the owned properties has 37 trillion in equity. Why is it so important for housing to do well? We need this money out and circulating, right? We need this money. Could it add to more inflation? It probably could. And that's something to be cognizant and wary of, but we need to get at this money. I talk to clients all the time. It cracks me up how people will have $200,000 in debt, paying 29% interest rate on their credit cards, and they'll have 400,000, which is the average household equity right now in our country. 400,000 in every person's home is sitting there, a big bank account available that we can tap into. And so many of them don't use it to pay off their 28% credit card because they're fixated on this like victory that they got a 2.5% interest rate. And when you run the blended interest rates, you're like, bro, your blended rate on all your debt is 7%, and you can get a 6.75 rate right now. And I can free up $6,000 a month in cash flow. Why wouldn't you do this, right? But people get stubborn and get fixated on just one thing. So this is so powerful, guys, to see. And check this out. 35 million homeowners are free and clear. So those of you watching that are buyer's agents, loan officers that represent buyers, this is our problem. And I already see it coming out. We had 8 offers go in this weekend. We only had 2 accepted, right? So 6 of them we lost. The 2 we got accepted was on our cash plus pre-approval. That means we buy the property cash and then we do the loan with the client afterwards, or the sellers let us just do the loan with the reassurance that, hey, if the client hasn't closed by the closing date, the next day Cross Country pays cash for it. So it's a great program to compete with cash offers and to look better than the finance offers. I promise that's the only selling I'm going to do on this. But this is a big problem if you have buyers that are being financed, right? And just show them this data. They need to get cash plus pre-approved because they're going to lose to a cash offer. We have seen more cash offers right now than I've ever seen. If you think about this logically, the cash buyers don't care what the interest rates are, right? They don't care. Maybe they could use this money and invest it in the stock market instead of buying a new home, but usually people trade homes for homes, right? So there is 20 trillion of wealth out there tied up in people's homes that own it free and clear, right? That's $571,000 per household that's owned free and clear. Then we have 56 million mortgaged properties. There's another 17 trillion in wealth there, an average of 311,000. And then this is why the housing market's been so great. People try and say like, oh, there's a bubble coming. No, there's not, because there's no negative equity in anyone's home. When I bought my first home in 2004, I did 110% financing so I could get a plasma TV, bachelor pad, leather furniture. That was awful. As soon as my now wife moved in with me, she got rid of it all one day while I was at work. That and like the Affliction T-shirts. If she's watching, she's probably cracking up right now. The Limp Bizkit T-shirt. She cleaned me out and turned me into a man, she said. But that's negative equity, right? We're all borrowing 100%, 110%. And then when values came down, half the country had negative equity. There's none of it right now. Everyone has made money in real estate. So this is so important to look at with your finance clients. And guys, if you have someone that's getting a grant, that's getting down payment assistance, that has 3% down or 5% down, and they think they're going to compete with one of these people, they're not. They're not in a good market. I believe the next month or so is their last chance to get a place for probably about 2 years. Now, every market's different, right? And there are opportunities and households that they can go into that maybe all these people aren't competing on. But the numbers say they're going to have a struggle getting a home, right? So what else is going to drive this? And I'll wrap this up at the end, is the demographics and how demographics are changing. And this is super interesting and shows why housing will continue to be strong. So just look at this slide and go over it with your buyers and maybe adjust it for your local market if you can find that data. This is so important for a buyer to understand what they're up against when buying a home. So the demographics are changing. So let's look to see what's going to happen the next 5 to 10 years with these demographics, right? The boomers are now age 60 to 78. Their population is 71 million. That's 74% ownership rate. So baby boomers are 74% home owners, right? What were they when they were age 30? They were 48% homeowners, right? What were they when they were 40 years old? 65% of them owned a home. Check out Gen X. That's 44 to 59. 65% of the population, or 65 million are Gen X of our population. 65% of them own homes when they were 30, 42%. So look at this big just change right here. These are the millennials, right? 33% of them own homes right now. They're the biggest population, right? You always hear it's the boomers and the millennials fighting over housing. That's true. And they're the two biggest populations, right? So check this out. Millennials are now median age of 35, right? So what's going to happen when this pushes up to 40, right? The ones that are already 40 and that age or that demographic is shifting to about 40, that will happen obviously in the next 5 years. Then it's 55%. So we'll likely go from 45% to 55%. So they're going to increase by 10%, right? Next 10 years, it should go from 33 to 55, as you can see right here. That's 8.5 million more homeowners, right, are going to move from renters to homeowners. Now check out Gen Z, 69 million worth. Their median age is 20 right now. So not a lot of them own homes, only 8%. But what's going to happen over the next 10 years as they age? It's going to increase from 8% to about 33% if they follow millennials, right? Now, this has gone down over time, and I think it's fair. You could say it's probably going to be closer to 25. So that's what we went with, right? That's still 17 million more homeowners. So we got 17, we got 8.5. Yes, maybe some of the boomers, my mother's in a home. She just left her house. She had to go into a care facility. That's going to happen. Unfortunately, some of these people will pass away, and that demographic might age out a little bit, but it's still not going to be to the level of these two, right? So active listings, what has happened, right? You've all seen it. There are more listings now, right? It's 27% year over year. Now, here's what the media does. They grab onto one stat and they say, oh my God, listings are going up. It's a housing bubble. And they pump that narrative to get their clicks and to get their views and watches, right? But look at it. I always call it a normal market, right? There's like post-COVID and pre-COVID. I think pre-COVID was a normal market, and we're starting to normalize back to that, right? Look at the amount of listings then. That is normal, right? And you can see it stayed from 2017 to 2020, right in that range until COVID hit. This gray line is COVID, or this gray silo is COVID. And it's obviously been crazy since that was super low, record low inventory. We're up 27% year over year since this time last year in listings, right? But is down 21% still from a normal market. And check it out. Population has grown 12 million since 2018. So we have 12 million more people and there's still less listings. And the demographic I just showed you is changing, right? This is why housing is so strong. So let me bring this home for you. Demand per year, 1.9 million household formations, right? Now, don't get this twisted because I hear so many people do it. Once you get a listing, right, unless the person's going into a nursing home, going to live with family, or they died, that is not inventory. You are moving one person from here to here. That's not an increase of inventory. This is household formations, new inventory of households. So there's 1.9 million new households being formed. That means people going out needing housing. It's 1.9 million right now. Well, what are we building to keep up with that? Supplies 1.289 million, right? So call it 1.3 versus 1.9. We have a 600,000 shortage continuing to go year over year. That is why housing remains resilient. Demand has not, supply, excuse me, has not caught up with demand. And what's going to happen to demand if my interest rate prediction is right? It's going to go up. So we see new construction catching up a little bit, but not by 600,000 per year. And keep in mind, developers went almost 10 years with barely building anything. So it's just when we look at this side by side, a problem that's going to continue to show itself. Demand, supply. Until these two numbers are even, housing's going to continue to go up. It's that simple. Show these slides to your clients so they understand that they need to get in now if they're going to be a homeowner. Reason pricings continue to rise. Okay. Last, what is our forecast? We believe real estate will go up by another 4%, right? It looks like 4.8 is where we landed at in 2024. We believe that will continue. If you look at a $500,000 home, we use that because that's our average price. That's $20,000 per year in gain. So you can literally just show this to a buyer and say, you can pay $20,000 more next year. And if interest rates drop even further, which could happen, this number will go up. 5-year cumulative, 30% to 35%, what we believe will happen over the next 5 years. That's $150,000 to $175,000 gain. So it just continues to show itself over and over and over. So I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate you being on. Home price appreciation, we're going to be up 4 to 4.5% this year, we believe. Core PC, this is so important that the Fed start looking at this right. And if they do, they'll realize we're already at 2.3 and we believe that will continue to come down. Is there going to be bumps in the road like the egg shortages right now and some of the changes that they want to make to the food industry and those costs go up? Of course, it's going to happen. Maybe that will be offset by us producing energy. We don't know, right? But overall, if they look at the correct data, which a huge percentage of it is shelter, you will see that this should be very close to accurate. We believe unemployment will get up to 4.6 from 4.2. We showed you all the reasons why. The federal funds rate will land around 3.25 to 3.5. And best news is mortgage rates will decline to about 5.75 to 6%. That 6.25 is where the magic is at. That's where clients feel that their monthly payments are affordable. That's where people, when they own a home and I run numbers for them, they're like, yeah, I can stomach that, right? When I run it for them at 7.5%, like we were 2 weeks ago, they're like, I'm not moving, I'm staying here, right? So these things are so important. I'd also like to encourage you, reach out to your past clients. This is a time where they need expert guidance. This is a time where they need data. There is so much misinformation and fear peddled out there. And unfortunately, most people get their news from sources that are paid to create fear. The data, if looked at correctly, does not lie. And you need to be the expert. You know more than some journalist that's never sold a home. You need to be the calm during the storm. You need to show them the opportunity. When I call past clients right now, I have 6,000 of them from my career. I see a lot of people overextended. There are so many listings I send back to my partners because they can't afford anything anymore. They have to sell their home, get into that, what was it, 28 trillion of equity that mortgage holders have, pay off their debt and start over. And yes, you can get a line of credit, and yes, you can do a cash out refinance, but guess what I've seen with so many people over and over and over again? It's not enough. They need all the money in that home, which you can't get from a line of credit. You can only go up to about 90%. Some crazy ones with ridiculously high interest rates go up to 95. They need you to sell the home. They need to hit reset. They need to start their debt over, and they either need to go rent or put 3 to 5% down on a new home and start over. I can't tell you, it happens once a day. Once a day, I have a conversation with people that is their situation. So many people have overextended themselves during these last, call it 2.5, 3 years of high inflation. They have overextended themselves. They funded it with things like Affirm, which is a buy now, pay later service, tons of credit card debt, and their only hope is to tap into their equity. And so many times I can't help them do that. They need a great real estate agent to guide them through that, pay off all their debt, reset their monthly payments, and start over. And that's my advice to a lot of people that are struggling with that. So, no, that's all out there. I promise you, if you've done over 50 deals in your career, you have a past client that's struggling with that right now. And they need the realization with data, not with fear and not with their trophy of their 2.5% interest rate that is doing nothing from them for a cash flow perspective. It doesn't matter if you can't buy groceries. It doesn't matter if you can't pay for your kids' expensive. It does not matter. And people need the guidance and expertise to show that. So reach out to your past clients. There's a lot of people struggling with debt out there, and it's starting to come to the forefront that they can't continue to live like this. And I've just noticed it probably in the last about 120 days. I'm just like, good Lord, this is like every conversation. So we reach out to all 6,000 of our past clients twice a year, actually 3 times a year. They get a birthday call 4 times a year. They get a home anniversary call from us. They get a birthday call from us, and then they get 2 reviews on their home. I go over the about the value that our Black Knight tool shows us and say, hey, go to your agent. They're going to know better than this. This is just data. But we go over about what their value is, how much they put down, what their ROI is, how much they could make if they sold their home approximately, or do you need to pay off any debt? Do you want to buy an investment property? Which a lot of people do, by the way. You should be asking that question. Do you want to upgrade the property further? Which a lot of people want to do too. So there's so much opportunity out there in the people that have already trusted us. Do this webinar yourself. Invite all your past clients. The slides are yours. If you'd like my past client call spreadsheet that I put together, happy to do that for you. Put your email once again in the chat on Zoom or on Facebook and Instagram. Just comment. We'll make sure you get that. And if there's enough demand, I will get on a Zoom call with y'all and I'll go over my scripting for my past client calls that has been very effective. I went from only 5% of my business in 2016 came from my past clients to now over 60% of my business comes from past clients. So you can make that shift too if you're diligent on the calls, add a lot of value, arm them with data. People also, I will end with this, don't want to just hear it. They want to see it like this. If I was just saying this to you guys without the slides, it would probably go like this, as I know when people talk numbers to me. It just goes over my head. I don't listen. I don't understand it. When I see the numbers on top of what they advise and what they recommend, when they do that with graphs and charts and numbers, then I understand it. So be the expert. Over 3/4 of the mortgage lenders have left the industry. I believe it's now over half of the real estate agents have left the industry. You do these things, educate yourself, inform yourself, arm yourself with good scripting, good follow-up. Be the expert, not the order taker. Be the advisor, not the sign here person, and your business can go to heights. I believe there's a big, huge pot of gold waiting for all of us for the tough times we've had to endure the last 2 years. And I believe this is how you get there. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you found value in this. These are predictions. They are from data. And last year we were spot on with all of our predictions. So we hope to be the same this year. And if I can help you in any way with your buyers, with your listings, that's what we do for our realtor partners. We arm them with information like this. We arm them with data. We help them with scripting. I've been blessed to be a coach and have been coached for the last 10 years. And it's all come from that. So if I can help you in any way, please let me know. You can get my team anytime at 312-731-4939. Friend me on Facebook or Instagram. Shoot me a DM if you want to get together for 15 minutes. And we'll show you how we can help you get more buyers. We'll show you how we can help you get more listings. We'll show you how we get referrals that your other lenders aren't getting you. So I appreciate you guys being on today.